Is there any path forward for Israel, the Palestinians, and the Middle East?
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, biblical scholar and cultural commentator, Dr. Michael Brown. Your voice for moral sanity and spiritual clarity. Call 866-34-TRUTH to get on The Line of Fire. And now, here's your host, Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome, friends, to our Thoroughly Jewish Thursday broadcast here on The Line of Fire. It's going to be a very important show. I will be taking your Jewish-related questions at 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. A lot of important things I want to weigh in on and think through together with you scripturally and in terms of what's happening in the world around us. We are all in the line of fire. That is the reality. That is the world in which we live. It has been that way since the fall of man. It has been accelerated and intensified since Jesus came into the world to begin to advance the kingdom of God in this world. The opposition has ratcheted up and the working of God has ratcheted up. So we are all here for such a time as this, standing together on the front line. That's why we're here, friends, to infuse you with faith and truth and courage. If you're not getting my Frontline newsletter, which you're getting if you're getting our emails, go to thelineoffire.org. Go there right now, unless you're driving. Take a moment, go to thelineoffire.org, sign up for our emails. We've got some very important announcements coming regarding Israel and Jewish ministry as well. So you want to be informed at this time, and we want to do our best to stand with you on the front lines. So the agonizing situation in Israel and for the people of Gaza and for the Palestinians in the West Bank and for Jewish people worldwide continues. And again, to give you context, the Jewish population of Israel, just roughly speaking, about 7 million people, a little bit over that. The overall population of Israel proper that everyone agrees on, about 9 million. And then you have all the Palestinians that would be in West Bank and Gaza, which is about 4 or 5 million total in addition to that. Let's just say the Jewish population of Israel, a little over 7 million. So the population of the United States, 330 million. So 7 times 40 is 280 million. 7 times 50 is 350 million. So you're talking about roughly 47 or 48 times the population of Israel. What's happening in America, the American people. So if we talk about one person dying in Israel, that's like almost 50 people dying in America. Just equivalent population. One Jewish person dying in Israel would be the equivalent of almost 50 dying in America. So a few days ago, the worst tragedy for Israel in the midst of the war against Hamas in Gaza, 21 soldiers killed in a single day. 21 soldiers killed, a building collapsing with RPG fire from Hamas terrorists, etc. So that's like 1,000 American soldiers dying in a single day. And every single night, Israelis sit down and watch the news with a sense of dread to get the latest announcement of this soldier died, and there are the pictures of this 20-year-old guy and 25-year-old guy. And here's a 30-year-old it was married with 3 kids and so on, every single day. And it's the agony of who's going to be next and what's coming next. And a lot of this is happening not just because of Israel's goal to minimize civilian casualties in Gaza, but because of American pressure on Israel to do it. So they have to fight a certain way to be even more careful, which puts them at even more risk and makes them even less effective in taking out Hamas. At the same time, the people in Gaza are suffering horrifically, overwhelmingly, regardless of whether Israel is doing its level best to minimize civilian casualties or if Israel has gone too far. It is an absolute scandal to accuse Israel of genocide, and hopefully the world court will recognize that shortly as well. But if Israel has done things that have been wrong or harsh or could have done them better, whatever, or if Israel's doing its level best, either way, terrible, terrible suffering for the people in Gaza. I understand that many of the people in Gaza, maybe the majority, are wholeheartedly supporting Hamas. Now, it's difficult to say because they're under pressure. You don't know how many would get rid of Hamas if they could. We know for a fact that hostages were held in the homes of civilians, not just Hamas soldiers, because the civilians were happy to work with Hamas. We know for a fact that civilians, once Hamas started breaching the border and coming in and wreaking havoc, that civilians came in as well and attacked people or kidnapped people. We know these things. These are documented, verified by eyewitnesses, etc. We know that, but it doesn't mean that every single Palestinian is guilty. It doesn't mean that every single one has committed an atrocity, that every single one has blood on their hands. Absolutely, certainly not. Even those who are sympathetic to Hamas, because of the way they've been raised and the way they've been indoctrinated or even brainwashed and what they've suffered under Israel, all those things coming together, they're certainly not all guilty and deserving of punishment at this time. So hunger, disease, death, rampant there in Gaza. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is ultimately Hamas's fault for putting the people in danger, for wasting hundreds of millions of dollars on tunnels and weaponry rather than caring for the people in Gaza. So the ultimate cause of the suffering of the people in Gaza is Hamas. But how do you move forward now? How can you possibly move forward? So on the one hand, there is the idea that you just have to completely wipe out Hamas, just take them out, period, end of subject. Remove them from power, exterminate as many of the terrorists as you can, or arrest them, imprison them, and then work with the people of Gaza to have a new friendly leadership that will work with this. How in the world is it going to happen? Where are they going to come from? And how much now of this current generation that's suffering in the midst of this war in Gaza is going to be sympathetic and like, okay, we can work with our neighbor Israel. And remember, Hamas is not about territory as much as ideology. As my friend in Israel, Usher and Trader, pointed out in a video, he's talking to me about it. He said, okay, look at the Iraqi flag and look at the ISIS flag. Oh, they're different. Okay, look at the Palestinian flag and look at the Hamas flag. Oh, it's different. Each of these radical militant organizations, it is an ideology. It is Allah alone. So Israel, territorially, they're in the way of that, but it's a larger Islamic caliphate vision. It's a larger Islamic domination vision. So the people of Gaza have been so indoctrinated in this and under the power of this radical Islam. Where's the leadership going to come from? And if you say, okay, look, let's just go with the two-state solution because you have to give people breathing room and you have to give them hope and you have to give them a future, which theoretically I absolutely affirm that the Palestinians in West Bank and Gaza need to have a hope and need to have a future and need to have the ability to build their own lives and educate their kids and have travel outlet and absolute freedom like the Israelis have. Absolutely, that's the goal. And then you could live side by side in peace and in harmony. That's the goal. But the concern is that the goal is not shared. Even though your average Palestinian might say, yeah, we just want a better life and we don't want to fight, etc. The bottom line is there is radical Islam that underlines and undergirds so much of this. And if you give more land and space, as Israel did to Gaza, pulling out in 2005, you just make room for more terrorists who are now going to come and slaughter you, period. That's simple. You say, well, then what do? You have to just crush and crush. Oh, okay, until you wipe out everybody? God forbid. God forbid. Just expel everybody? Push where? Into the sea? Force them into other countries that won't accept them? So it's a big problem. If you argue for a two-state solution, which Prime Minister Netanyahu remains resolutely opposed to and the United States administration continues to push for, on a certain idealistic level, that would be wonderful to live side by side in peace. There's enough room for everybody. Live side by side in peace and prosperity with no hostilities. It's just not realistic. That's the problem. It is simply not realistic. You say, what is the solution? I have 3 words. I don't know. I don't know. And people massively smarter than me in terms of the Middle East situation, with massively more experience, massively more insight for all the experience and knowledge I have, they have about 20 billion times more. They haven't come up with a solution. So I don't know. Okay, if I could come up with some kind of idealistic dream, it would be that other Arab nations who want to make peace with Israel and have proven they want to live side by side and in peace and prosperity, that they help oversee the rebuilding of Gaza, that they establish a moderate government. And as the people of Gaza see they have a better way of life, their kids are getting educated, they're not living in abject poverty, they're not living in massive unemployment, they have hope, they have a path to the future. The Israelis are not these demons, they're neighbors with similar aspirations and hopes. They live side by side in peace and prosperity under some international auspices. And that the West Bank gets rid of the corrupt leadership they have and says, let's go this way as well, Judea, Samaria, and then everyone lives in peace side by side. Okay, that would be the idealistic dream. I just don't see any way of it happening. Now, Joel chapter 3, verse 2, where God rebukes the nations for dividing up his land, is often raised to say there can be no two-state solution because that is dividing up the land. You could use it in that way, but my understanding of the text is that foreign nations have invaded Israel. They've destroyed the Jews, sent them into captivity or subdued them, whatever, and now they're going to divide up the land between themselves. And God's going to judge them because this is his land. This is his land. At the same, Israel's not living in complete righteousness. Israel as a nation is not right with God through faith in the Messiah. And therefore, there is no right to the fullness of the land that would have come through Torah obedience. If you're just looking under the Sinai covenant, there is no right to the fullness of the land and Israel having full possession. Israel's only there by divine grace. Israel's in the land today because God said, I'm bringing you back. It's my land, and I'm bringing you back to the inheritance I promised you. So we can't say, well, Israel has the right to all the territory. Well, if Israel was in righteous obedience to God and faith in the Messiah, then that would be the case. So all I can do is pray, Lord, your will be done. Lord, your will be done. Some of these ideas I threw out to you are idealistic. And those advocating for the one-state solution, how do you incorporate everybody in one? And this is the national anthem for the Palestinians, Hatikva, and what happens if Palestinian birth rates go even higher? And then you have an Arab-Muslim majority, then you don't have a Jewish state. So I have more questions than answers, honestly. I wish I could say more, but I'm trying to lay it out. Say, oh, God, your will be done. Your will be done. All right, we'll get to some calls. I got some fascinating, a little bit lighthearted information to share with you as well. Stay right here.
I'm Dr. Paul Burnett, a board-certified doctor of holistic health, and I've got some exciting news for you today about an amino acid formula scientifically shown to build lean muscle, improve strength, and reduce recovery time at any age. Dr. Robert Wolf was a researcher of muscle health who raised $20 million to fund 30 years of research and was able to perfect a formula scientifically shown to build lean muscle, improve strength, and improve recovery time at any age. And now this formula is available in Trivita's MyoHealth. Here is what Trivita members have to say. Patricia P. says, I'm 88 years old, a ballroom dancer, and compete in competitions. I could not seem to keep my muscle tone until I started taking MyoHealth. James H. says, I'm 60 and have experienced more solid definition of muscle, more energy, more stamina, and enhanced recovery after my workout. Now begin to imagine what you could do with more muscle, increased strength, and faster recovery. Whether you're a ballroom dancer like Patricia or someone looking to boost their fitness at 60 like James, now is the time to revitalize and rebuild the muscle, strength, and recovery of your youthful years with MyoHealth.
Build lean muscle. Improve your strength with MyoHealth. Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25% off your order. As a new customer, 100% of the proceeds from your first order will go to support the Line of Fire radio broadcast. So call now, 1-800-771-5584, 1-800-771-5584, or online at TRIVITA, Trivita.com.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back, friends, to our Thoroughly Jewish Thursday broadcast. Michael Brown, delighted to be with you. 866-34-TRUTH. I'll get to your Jewish-related questions in a little while. I posted a very important statement regarding the situation with IHOP KC, Mike Bickle. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry about it. But it is on our YouTube channel, and we posted links on our Twitter and Facebook page. So be sure to look for that video. It's a very important statement, and I encourage you to pray and to circulate it widely. Okay. I was getting ready to do an interview with a pastor for his webcast, and we were talking about my new book, Seize the Moment, talking about revival. But at the end, he said, hey, I want to ask you questions about people making prophecies based on the Hebrew alphabet or the traditional Jewish calendar. You know, it's year 5784 in the traditional Jewish calendar, and if there's prophetic meaning to those things, and a lot of these silly trends that we have, especially in our charismatic prophetic circles. You know, and it's often as silly as, you know, more in 2024, you know, wow, or, you know, Jesus and me in 2023. I mean, whatever. You come up with these little things, and it's just silly, right? It's just silly. So, and the Hebrew stuff can get sillier because people think, ooh, deriving special meaning and this and that. So I was demolishing some of that. So I wanted to illustrate the point. So my name in Hebrew, Michael. So Michael in English, Michael in Hebrew. So not in Old Testament times, but as you get closer to New Testament times, the Hebrew letters were also used for numbers. So not in the days of Isaiah or the days of Elijah, the days of Moses, but as you get probably after the time of Malachi, intertestamental period, 200-300 years before the time of Jesus, now you have the Hebrew letters also being used as numbers. Before that, you can go to the ancient calendars, and they've got lines like 1, 2, 3, or other symbols to represent numbers. So it's a certain point in time that the letters came to represent numbers, but after the time of the writing of the Old Testament, basically. So Aleph, the first letter, is 1, Beit, the second letter, 2, right up to Yud, the 10th letter, which is 10. So let's make it English. A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. So E would be 5, right? So F, G, H, I, J. J would be 10. Then what's the next? It'd be K, which in Hebrew is Kaf. That's 20. And then L, which in Hebrew is Lamed. That's 30. Then Mem, M, which would be Mem in Hebrew. That's 40. And N, which is Nun in Hebrew, would be 50. So, wow, the letters are similar. Yeah, because the Greek alphabet comes from the original Phoenician Hebrew alphabet. That's why they're so similar. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, A, B, C, D. That's why they're so similar. Okay. So I said to AI, to artificial intelligence, using AI Claude, I said, okay, so what's my name using gematria? So M, right? M, 40, Yud is 10. Yeah, don't put the slide up yet, okay? Don't put the slide up yet for those watching. So M, Michael, right? The Mem is 40, the Yud is 10, then the Kaf is 20, Aleph is 1, and Lamed is 30, right? So Michael, if you add them up, if you make them into numbers and add them up, it comes to 101. So I just wanted to prove the point that you could make anything mean anything. You could make anything mean anything. In other words, all you have to do is find other Hebrew words that total up to 101, and you'd say that Michael is the same as this, this. So I ask AI, give me a list of other Hebrew words whose numerical value is 101. And it puts this whole list up there, and I'm thinking, what in the world? I'm looking at the Hebrew letters like, what are you talking about? Like one of them, the first letter is worth 400. Like what in the world? So So I want you to look at this. So AI is unbelievable. I mean, it nailed the Hebrew. It gave you a list of Hebrew words. It had right transliteration for them, right meaning for them. Okay, the Hebrew word tahom, which is the depths or the deep, has a gematria numerical value of 101. This is according to AI Claude. Tav equals 400, Hey equals 5, Vav equals 6, and Mem equals 40. So it's correct to say that the Tav equals 400, the Vav equals 5, the Mem equals, the Hey equals 5, the Vav equals 6, Mem equals 4. That's correct. The only problem is 400 plus 5 plus 6 plus 40. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, this is artificial intelligence. When you add up the values of the individual letters, the total numerical value is 400 plus 5 plus 6 plus 40 equals 101. How this is, I mean, it's brilliant. In those Hebrew, it can go from language to language. So the gematria of the Hebrew word tahom, meaning abyss, is 101. This matches some of the other Hebrew words with a numerical value of 101 that are associated with spiritual themes. So I told Claude, I said, you made a mistake. Your math is off. You're absolutely right. Here's the reply I get. You're absolutely right. My apologies. At least AI is polite. Let me recalculate the numerical value of the Hebrew word tahom more carefully. And that's 400 plus 5 plus 6 plus 40 equals 451. Thank you for catching my mistake. I made an error and hastily added. It wasn't hastily adding it up. It malfunctioned. The correct numerical value is 451. Okay, I appreciate the time that I corrected. All right, so I said, please recheck your math on all of these. Here are some other words that have the gematria numerical value of 101 according to AI. Lila, night, dim'ah, tir, harhur, thought, siman, sign, emunah, which is belief or faith, yareach, moon, galgal, wheel, menorah, candelabra, tahom, abyss, Yeshua, salvation. I said, could you just check those out? Oh, you're right. Here's the next slide. You're right. I should double check all of those gematria calculations. Let me carefully reevaluate. So look at this. These are all supposed to be a 101 in Hebrew. So if you don't know any Hebrew, you're getting right. It's all supposed to be 101. Lila is 75. Harhor, thought. So night is 75. Harhor, thought is 200. Emunah, at least that was close, 102. Galgal, 66. Tahom, 451. Dim'ah, 119. Siman, sign or indication, 160. Yareach, moon, 218. Menorah, candelabra, 301. And Yeshua, salvation, 391. Every single one was wrong. These were supposed to be numerical equivalents to Michael, my name, with a gematria value of 101. So somehow I got my name right, calculate that right, and then came up with, how does it work? It came up with all this other data that's completely bogus. It needs this. It's like, no, it doesn't. It just stop and do the math. Oh, I was hasty. That's not hastiness. That's a malfunction in the programming. But how did they get my name, Michael, right, the numerical value correct, and then got everything else, all knew the Hebrew, knew the transliteration of it, so the pronunciation of it, knew the meaning of it. It got all of that right, and then the numbers, all of them wrong in terms of the math. Looks like got a little ways to go. Now, I asked AI Claude the other day when I use the phrase, so when Dr. Michael Brown uses the phrase, hearts of compassion, backbones of steel, what does that mean? And it was great. I mean, it was articulate and understood my heart and the position of it. It was brilliant. And then I checked some other AI software and came up with other brilliant descriptions. And then some other, and I posted it. Others posted. They said, hey, I asked this AI. So it's like, got that great, nailed it, and go from language to language and all this, and yet can't do simple math. Wow. All right, a little bit lighthearted here for a moment. We'll be back. Take your calls on the other side of the break. 866-348-7884. Hey friends, Michael Brown here. My delight to serve as your voice for moral sanity and spiritual clarity. We are living in such urgent times today, friends, that all of us are in the line of fire. There's a target on your back. There's a target on my back. If you simply seek to live by biblical values or just conservative moral values, you could be canceled. You could be cast out. You could be put down. You could be silenced. I'm here to say, friends, that I am not about to be silenced, and I don't believe you are either. It is time for us to stand up. It is time for us to say enough is enough. It is time for us to push back in Jesus' name. Not fighting the way the world fights. No, overcoming evil with good, overcoming hatred with love, overcoming the flesh with the power of the Spirit, overcoming lies with truth. And that's what we're here to do on the Line of Fire broadcast. And friends, it's not just a broadcast. It is a movement of people around the world, God's people standing up saying enough is enough and saying, Lord, here we are. Send us, use us. I want to urge you today to join our support team because we are on the front lines together. And we are literally touching people around the world, in America, in the nations, in Israel. And together with your help, we're going to amplify this voice and spread this movement around the globe. So I encourage you, go right now to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org. Click Donate Monthly Support. Thelineoffire.org, click Donate Monthly Support. When you do, you become a torchbearer. We immediately send you 2 great life-changing books. We immediately give you access to many classes I've taught. Others have to pay to take those. You get them for free. Exclusive video, audio content, a new audio message every month, an insider prayer newsletter, 15% discount on our online bookstore, so much more. Join our support team today. Go to thelineoffire.org. Donate monthly.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back, friends, to The Line of Fire. Phone lines are open, 866-34-TRUTH. If you're watching, I want to look you straight in the eye. If you're listening, give me your best ear. These are urgent times, friends. This is not about me. This is not about a ministry. This is not about a personal vision. This is about kingdom work. This is about pushing back against the horrific rising tide of anti-Semitism. This is equipping the church. This is about equipping the church to turn back serious doctrinal error that will lead to Jew hatred. This is about reaching the lost sheep of the house of Israel with the good news of Jesus, the Messiah. So I'm urging you to join our support team. There is so much work that we are doing that can multiply, literally multiply, all over America, all over the world, and right into Israel, directly into the hearts and minds of Jewish people there. We do it with your help. So if you love the God of Israel, if you love the people of Israel, if you love the Messiah of Israel, partner with us today. Go to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org. Click Donate Monthly Support. That's thelineoffire.org. Donate Monthly Support. But before you do it, just take a look at all the benefits that come your way as you join our support team, because we are committed to pouring into you every way that we know how. If it's easier for you to just make a phone call, say, I want to join the support team, I want to become a torchbearer, $1 a day or more, 800-538-5275. 800-538-5275. The hour is urgent. We are amping up everything we are doing, and I am on my knees before God saying, Lord, let me run my race with everything in me to glorify your name. For such a time as this, we are here together. Thank you for standing with us. This is sacred work. This is a sacred time. And one more reminder, if you're not getting my emails, we've got important Israel-related announcements to send out to you. And our Frontline newsletter for February, we're working on putting together now in a way that will really bless you and enrich you. So at thelineoffire.org, just sign up for the homepage for our Frontline newsletter. All right, with that, we go to the phones. Let's start in Detroit with Natalie. Thanks for holding. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hi, Hi, Dr. Brown. God bless you. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to you and your team for organizing the trip to Israel last year. My husband and I were on that trip, and it was a great blessing to us.
Wonderful.
Truly changed my life.
How so? How so?
Really edified me. Just really understanding how true the Bible is and how real God's plans for Israel are, having a greater connection to not only the Word of God, but what the Word of God means for the future and what's going to come. And so I'm just so grateful to have had the privilege to go on that trip. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's such a joy to bring folks over and so worthwhile. Hey, one quick question for you. I'm sure you and your husband had high expectations. I mean, you set aside time and funds to make this happen. You look forward to it for months. You had high expectations. How did the trip live up to your expectations?
Completely surpassed my expectations.
Praise God.
Especially our tour guides. They were amazing.
Yes, they were.
They were amazing.
They are.
It's like a had to be there thing. You had to be there. So anyways, my question. So I've been coming across this name, Yahuwah, and these different groups saying, this is the true name of God. And I try to do any research on it, and it seems very esoteric, and I really want to be wrong about that. But I just want to get your thoughts on what that is, if you have any idea about that.
If it was a joke, it would be a bad joke. The fact that people take it seriously is pathetic. So this is allegedly the real pronunciation of the divine name, that it was originally Yahuwah, and that so the name Yahweh, or as it was traditionally pronounced in English before that, Jehovah, that is now Yahuwah. There is absolutely no basis for that. There is no philological basis. In other words, there is no logic to that in Hebrew. There is no external evidence, say the divine name, as it occurs in other ancient surrounding languages. There's no evidence for that in terms of the ongoing way that it is transliterated in later Greek versions. So as they're putting the divine name into Greek, etc., there's no evidence for it. There is no historic evidence that it was pronounced like that. If there is a debate between Yehovah or Yehovah and Yahweh, that's where you'll have a debate, although overwhelmingly scholars favor the pronunciation Yahweh. But the idea that it was Yahuwah is just one of these nonsense things, and people without a strong Hebrew background think they figured it out, and now it becomes the in thing. So it's something to completely ignore. You should ignore that as much as you ignore the idea that Rumpelstiltskin is going to meet you outside your door when you leave your house today. It is in that same category. Just ignore it. It's not even worth figuring out or thinking about. Just ignore it, move on. Has no meaning, no significance, no importance whatsoever. Move on from it.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet. And thank you again for the good word. It's a great blessing to have you and your husband with us. We'll see you again.
Yes. Thank you.
866-343. I don't know where the Rumpelstiltskin thing came from. It just kind of popped in my brain. But it's that random craze of this Yahuwah thing. All right. Let's go back to the phones in Urbana, California. Menno, welcome to the Line of Fire. Are you there? Gone. Okay. So,
can you hear me?
Hello? Oh, you are there.
Hello?
Great. Go for it, sir. Yes, you're here.
Sorry, you said California, and it kind of skipped a bit because it's actually Colorado.
You know what? That is simply the function of me being nearsighted. And even though they've got this big screen with everything blown up, it says CO.
No worries.
It says CO,
No worries.
and I read it as CA. So there you go.
No worries. Well, thank you for asking, Dr. Brown. I'm actually originally from Honduras. I don't know if you heard my country, but just moved to the U.S. not so long ago, and I discovered your show and a big fan.
Well, thank you.
Big fan of your teachings and stuff. It's helped me so much. I just had a quick question to not waste your time because I know you got other calls, but I don't know if you heard, I listened to a lot of media and TV and some other stuff on YouTube, and there's this guy called Breaking Points. I don't know if you heard of them on YouTube, but they had over a guy named Norman Finkelstein, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering if you had an opinion on his theory that what's going on in the war with Israel and Palestine. He's got some pretty big accusations on the Israeli. I don't want to say the people. I don't want to say might properly be the government, at least. He uses the terms of like Israel is proposing to mowing the lawn, and that they're not really holding themselves back when it's taking care of the people or the victims. They just go in there and don't really care about anyone. And he also compared what happened that day with basically comparing it to what happened here in the United States with the slavery, how he even mentioned
John
US
Brown.
hero.
John Brown,
yeah.
and the uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto. Yeah, so I actually read his post on Substack. Norman Finkelstein is Jewish.
Yeah.
Norman Finkelstein's parents, Holocaust survivors, as if I recall. He's written about the so-called Holocaust industry, that Jewish people have just used this as some money-making thing or to legitimize the modern state of Israel. He is one of the harshest critics of Israel today on the planet. What makes it so despicable is not that he has criticism of Israel, because there are groups within Israel like B'Tselem and others that are left-wing groups within Israel that every day publish something critical about Israel and take issue with Israeli policies and things like that. By the way, you can hear me, but you won't be able to talk for a second. There's just a lot of background noise that I don't want to flood everybody's ears here. But you can hear me just fine, and I'll bring you back on. So despicably, Norman Finkelstein said that it warmed his body. The events of October 7th and seeing Hamas fight back and seeing children celebrating in the streets of Gaza warmed his body. That's sick. That's ugly. That is despicable. There's no comparison to that in the Warsaw Ghetto, where Jews who were being starved to death, dying of disease and sickness, fought back against the Nazis. They didn't go into neighboring villages and start raping women until they killed them. They didn't go burning babies alive in neighboring villages. They fought back against the Nazi oppressors. If Hamas simply invaded Israel and went to war with Israeli soldiers, which I would still say is wrong, then at least you're making a slight comparison. In the Warsaw Ghetto compared to Gaza, those are also completely false comparisons. As for John Brown, any civilians that died because of John Brown, that's considered to be historically, if you look at it, that's considered to be tragic, all right? And even soldiers that were killed. He could be heroic in terms of his stance for slavery, but recognizes going about it the wrong way. But even so, name for me the people that John Brown and his team, the women that they raped and mutilated, literally mutilated, chopped up their body parts. Please name those women for me. Name for me the babies that John Brown and his team burned alive or beheaded. Name those for me. It's obscene to make those comments. So Norman Finkelstein is only listened to by those on the radical left and is a favorite of anti-Semites. There are plenty of other critics of Israel who are not extreme as he is. A couple more comments for you. But thank you, sir, for asking. The reason that Israeli soldiers are dying every day in Gaza is because they're doing their best to prevent civilian casualties. We get the calls from colleagues saying, my kid's about to go on the front lines, and they have to go through XYZ checklists before they can do something to make sure they've given ample warning to civilians. Look, bear in mind, Israel could definitely do things better. And I'm sure there are people that go too far in the midst of war, and they're furious and all of that. Look, there were Israelis, because the hostages have not been released yet, there are Israelis who are actually protesting humanitarian aid going from Israel into Gaza. It happens every day. They were protesting that. They represent a radical minority that said enough is enough. I'll come back with more on the other side of the break. Stay right here.
I'm Dr. Paul Burnett, a board-certified doctor of holistic health, and I've got some exciting news for you today about an amino acid formula scientifically shown to build lean muscle, improve strength, and reduce recovery time at any age. Dr. Robert Wolf was a researcher of muscle health who raised $20 million to fund 30 years of research and was able to perfect a formula scientifically shown to build lean muscle, improve strength, and improve recovery time at any age. And now this formula is available in Trivita's MyoHealth. Here is what Trivita members have to say. Patricia P. says, I'm 88 years old, a ballroom dancer, and compete in competitions. I could not seem to keep my muscle tone until I started taking MyoHealth. James H. says, I'm 60 and have experienced more solid definition of muscle, more energy, more stamina, and enhanced recovery after my workout. Now begin to imagine what you could do with more muscle, increased strength, and faster recovery. Whether you're a ballroom dancer like Patricia or someone looking to boost their fitness at 60 like James, now is the time to revitalize and rebuild the muscle, strength, and recovery of your youthful years with MyoHealth.
Build lean muscle. Improve your strength with MyoHealth. Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25% off your order. As a new customer, 100% of the proceeds from your first order will go to support the Line of Fire radio broadcast. So call now, 1-800-771-5584, 1-800-771-5584, or online at Trivita.com.
It's the Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on the Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thanks, friends, for joining us on Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. You know, our co-sponsor, Trivita, they help along with you, our regular sponsors. The last time I used nitric oxide in MyoHealth was immediately before today's broadcast. Those who want to find out more can call 800-771-5584, or they can go to Trivita.com. When they go there, there's a code BROWN25 they can use. So, Menno, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Great. So a couple other things I wanted to say. Bear in mind, this isn't in the midst of war. This is in the midst of Hamas slaughtering Israelis, the worst bloodshed on any single day in Israel since the Holocaust. And when you read the accounts, the documented accounts and the eyewitnesses and the forensic evidence, the butchering, the madness, the savagery is beyond anything that we've really heard about or witnessed in terms of happening on this mass level and this level of barbarism. So the only moral thing is you outright 100% condemn that, period, end of subject. Unjustified, wrong, sinful, condemned, end of subject. Then you say, okay, separate question, Israel conducting its war against Hamas, how is it doing that? Overall, with wars that Israel has engaged in, say with Hamas in the past, when serious studies have been done, and they say, okay, let's look at civilian casualties, because remember, the numbers that are being released by Hamas. They control the data. And they don't tell you how many of the casualties are Hamas combatants or sympathizers. So they don't tell you that. But either way, there's no question that many Palestinians have died terribly. Children, women, and those who are not combatants. More Palestinians have died than Israelis. You knew that was going to happen before the war started because Hamas has embedded itself using hospitals, using schools, hiding weapons there, quite intentionally. And I have comments, from them on record, within recent months. We're a nation of martyrs. Let all the blood be shed. It's just going to destroy Israel in the end. So the more civilian casualties, the better for Hamas PR and their case against Israel. But bear in mind, even though I'm sure that you have Israeli soldiers, that individual Israeli soldiers who do not act rightly, and decisions are made that end up taking lives that didn't have to be taken. Overall, the attempt is to minimize civilian casualties. So when studies have been done, looking at past wars that Israel's engaged and saying, okay, the number of from what they can compute, of hostile combatants killed compared to civilian casualties is a very low number compared to other wars, or World War II, or different wars that have been, or America's invasion of Iraq and things like that, Gulf War, etc. But just remember, this is what Israel does. They realize, okay, there's a terrorist enclave in a particular building. They use a cell phone. They call the number because they've got this intelligence to do it. They call hundreds of people in the building saying, we're going to bomb the building, evacuate. There are terrorists there, evacuate. They drop tens of thousands, millions of leaflets warning people, we're going to be bombing the area. And you say, well, where can they flee to? Well, if Egypt opened their borders temporarily, like Lebanon opened their borders to Syria, and Iraq opened their borders to Syria, there'd be plenty of room for the refugees, and then after the war, can go back. But no. Palestinians coming to Egypt, that's an act of war. So they're trapped in there. That's tragic, but Israel has to do its best to eradicate Hamas. So it's far from perfect. Israeli policies are far from perfect. You have, in particular, Jewish settlers in Judea-Samaria/West Bank who are hostile, who are aggressive, who are anti-Arab, and who are engaging in acts of violence. Those things exist. You have some extremists in the Israeli government that are a blotch, an outrage, and they've spoken in ways that are genocidal, and that is utterly irresponsible and to be completely rejected. But that is not how the military operates. That is not how the government operates. In fact, Israel has now released documents, internal documents, has declassified them for the World Court, saying, okay, Netanyahu and others saying we must be careful not to inflict civilian casualties. We have to make sure that more humanitarian aid is getting in, etc. So Norman Finkelstein is the last person I would listen to because of his extremism and his hostility. There are other fair critics of Israel. That's why I read Haaretz on a regular basis, because it is left-wing Israeli publication that hates Netanyahu and is totally hostile to the current regime and is criticizing Israel every day. And they would be the first ones to say that Israel is falsely accused of genocide, and also to refute the extreme claims of Norman Finkelstein. So I read stuff critical because I'm so pro-Israel. I do my best to hear the other side, but not from voices that disqualify themselves like Norman Finkelstein. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. He was just making some interesting claims and pulling some data and information on how the Israeli government has managed the Gaza situation, and how they're basically, pushing all the Gazans, the civilian people, into an area that is smaller than the LA airport, and that they're not allowing any food or any water or anything to reach.
They're doing their
people.
best. They're doing their best to get humanitarian aid in. A lot of it gets stolen by Hamas. There are actually videos of Hamas stealing the food that gets in. Israel would get much more in if they were able to. Israel's been the key to Gaza. Look, Israel has piped in free electricity and given water supplies for free for years. I mean, it's theoretically bills the Palestinian Authority, but then doesn't actually collect the money. So have you ever heard a politician get up and say, as I was in office, these last 4 years, we've created more jobs than any other presidency in American history. And then the opponent gets up and says, actually, it's the opposite. We've lost more jobs and unemployment's higher than it's ever been. You think, how can you both say that? So the statistics, the information needs to be sifted. All I'm saying is there are plenty of Israeli critics of Israel, plenty Jewish critics of Israel to listen to, but Norman Finkelstein is not one of them. His data is unreliable. Everything is so warped. Everything is seen through such a lens that is so extreme and so hateful that it warps his thinking and vision. So, it's just like there's some people so pro-Israel they can't fault Israel for anything they do, and everything is going to have a spin, and Netanyahu's perfect. And no, that's not the case. It's not the case. But he's just like anyone who says seeing what happened on October 7th warmed his body to see the children in Gaza and the people celebrating for fighting back. That's sick. And that's someone I'm not going to listen to. And there's, like I said, a lot of other data to get from a lot better people. Hey, thank you, sir, for the call. I do appreciate it. 866-348-7884. I have been meditating on different scriptures in Hebrew. Many of them I'd memorized years ago, and just meditating on them on a daily basis, and repeating them, and verses about the word itself, verses about God's calling on his people and his calling on the prophets to stand and go against the grain, and just different things that are valued to me, or prayers for God to search our hearts and to purify us. And what's extraordinary is you don't need esoteric meanings. You don't need, there's a secret numerical message. No, that is nonsense, and it's not how the biblical writers wrote, and it's not how they were inspired. The message is in the words. And if you dig deeper into the words, it's quite extraordinary. I was meditating on the end of Psalm 139, where the psalmist prays that to see if there's in him any derech otsev. Now, otsev, it's possible with a different vocalization, could refer to idolatry. So see if there's any idolatrous way in me. And you see that in some translations. But otsev is normally associated with pain. Remember the prayer of Jabez, right? Yabetz in Hebrew. And his prayer was to be spared from otsev, or otzbi, my pain. It was his mother's prayer for him. So otsev is normally associated with pain. And I was just looking at it, meditating on it, because English translations, where I first memorized it in the King James, didn't translate it in that way. And I was just struck again, reading it in Hebrew. Is there any grievous way in me? What is a derech otsev? And immediately, two thoughts come to mind. One, of course, is anything in me that hurts others. Lord, see if there's any derech otsev in me, any way in me that brings pain to others, that hurts others. But the biggest thing that struck me, just again meditating on it, was not like a new revelation. I just discovered this. You find it in some English translations and, of course, in the dictionaries. But just one of those things just hadn't struck me. Derech otsev, a painful way, meaning anything that causes God pain, anything that causes God grief. And it's just something to think about. You say, well, how, many atheists say if God is truly this eternal being, the creator of all things, then how could our sin possibly affect him? And Job even asked that question. If I sin, what does it mean to you, watcher of men? What's the connection? I have an article about this, by the way. If you go to thelineoffire.org, click on read, you'll see it, one of my latest articles, thelineoffire.org, click on read. But the idea of my sin could hurt God. How? He's an eternal being. We're these frail little, because God is love, because he cares about us, because he made us with a purpose. And he's intimately involved, wants to be intimately involved in our lives. And when we sin, it grieves him. It causes him pain. So just a little meditation for you in Hebrew. Again, another reminder to make sure to sign up for our frontline newsletter, thelineoffire.org. And we do welcome you to partner with us as we reach out to the lost sheep of the house of Israel with the message of salvation, forgiveness, redemption through Yeshua, the Messiah, while we resist the sinful agenda of anti-Semitism and the destruction of the Jewish people. May God's grace and peace, his shalom and blessing be upon you in the days ahead. Thanks for joining us today on Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. May Jesus, Yeshua, be exalted in all things.